Hello, new book, Shuna's Journey by Hayao MIyazaki, translated by Alex Dudok DeWitt. Uh, yeah, Hayao Miyazaki book. And yes, it is the same Hayao Miyazaki of Studio Ghibli, director of films like Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro, um, and most recently, The Boy and the Heron, which I also watched recently. Very good movie. Anyway, uh, yeah, since the last thing I did was Howl's Moving Castle, which was by Miyazaki, I figured I was on a Miyazaki kick, so may as well do this one. So this one is a graphic novel, sort of, or manga, I guess. This one is a manga of sorts. It's almost more of like a picture book. There are some parts that have like more writing than others, but a lot of it is just drawings with fairly limited writing, either captions or dialogue. And it is inspired by a Tibetan story, interestingly enough. Um, Tibetan folktale, The Prince Who Turns into a Dog. Uh, in that myth, Prince Achu, uh, his people are starving, so he goes into the west and steals barley from the Serpent King. Uh, he is punished by being turned into a dog. But then he ends up being returning to human form uh, because of the love of a young woman. Um, and that folktale is, or at least was, sort of a an explanation of how Tibet got barley. So that is where Miyazaki drew his inspiration from. He actually wanted to do an animated adaptation. Like he actually wanted to do it as a movie, animated movie, but he didn't figure that it would be particularly wanted at the time in Japan. So instead, he was encouraged to do it as a manga. He originally published it back in 1983. Uh, it was only a couple of years ago, 2022, and late 2022, that it was actually adapted or translated into English. Uh, so almost 30 years. Sorry, almost 40 years. What even is time? Almost 40 years for it to get an English translation, which is a shame because it is really good. And yeah, Miyazaki has been pretty well known and pretty popular for a long time here in the West. Um, was published by First Second Books, who does do really good work. They're a really good publisher. They've got a lot of really good readers for them. Um, so it is different from the folktale. In this one, Prince Shuna is the protagonist. His people aren't really starving. basically the world he lives in, his kingdom doesn't really have a lot of food. They work hard to farm, but yields are very small. Um, if they're not in an emergency, but things aren't really going well for them. So it's but Prince Shuna does learn about a special golden seed, golden wheat that comes from the west, and which is particularly hardy. So, if he's able to get those that wheat, then things will go better for his people. So he goes out on a journey to find that wheat, and along the way, he has some other adventures. Um, his people actually ask him, like his father and the elders actually ask him not to leave, but he does feel that it's for the best for his people. So it's a little bit of arrogance, really, on his part. Eventually, he comes to a large city where a lot of people are. Or first, he comes across some slave traders, and then to a large city. A lot of people. A lot of people being traded as slaves. So what happens? And yeah, here he meets a couple of young women, young girls. And so what happens is people are traded to the gods of the West in exchange for the grain. And then they eat they eat those grains. For dead seeds specifically. So traded for dead seeds, they're not getting living grain, so they're not able to farm it themselves, but they're able to eat it. But it's far to the west in the land of the gods, so he has to steal from the gods. Before he does that, he does decide to try to rescue some slaves. In particular, the two girls he met in the town. He does eventually make it to the land of the god folk. He actually manages to steal some of the grain. In his case, instead of being turned into a dog, he ends up losing basically everything. Loses his memory, loses his ability for speech. He ends up stumbling on his return. He ends up stumbling on the village, or on a village where the two girls he rescued are living. The older sister, they're the sisters. The older one's name is Thea. The younger one, I don't think we ever learn Thea's sister's name. Yeah, we never learn her name. So yeah, Thea is the older sister. She ends up finding Shuna and takes care of him. Plants the seeds he found, or helps him plant the seeds he found, and sort of brings him back to himself. And honestly, there's a lot of... You can see a lot of sort of the seeds of later, of, Miyazaki's movies. No pun intended when I mentioned seeds, but yeah, you can see a lot of elements in here that are familiar from his movies. He'd been working on the Nausicaa manga even before he started working on this. And there are definitely some similarities between this and Nausicaa. You can also see sort of few things that, just little things here and there that are sort of familiar from Princess Mononoke. Even from Castle in the Sky. And things like that. So you can sort of see like little bits that, like, oh yeah, that sort of reminds me of that bit. Also, an interesting note. Prior to this, apparently Miyazaki had wanted to do an adaptation of A Wizard of Earthsea. But the sort of ended up falling through. The permission ended up being just being refused. Interestingly, Studio Ghibli would end up making an Earthsea movie, directed by Miyazaki's son, Goro Miyazaki, which took some heavy inspiration from Shuna's journey. Kind of funny how that worked out. And you can see certain things about, like, as Miyazaki's appreciation for sort of strong female protagonists. Thea does bear a lot of similarities to a fair number of the female protagonists from Ghibli movies. Shuna himself definitely bears a lot of comparisons to the protagonist from Princess Mononoke. Blanking on the guy's name, on the character's name from that one. So definitely see a lot of the Miyazaki's sort of creative tendencies in here. And I mean that as a compliment. Because he's, there's a reason he's one of the most beloved directors out there. The art is gorgeous. It is beautiful art. The prose is really good. It's really good sort of storybook, sort of myth. It does feel like it's telling a legend. It's inspired by that Tibetan folktale, but takes some major differences that make it a lot more interesting, frankly. It's not a long book. It is fairly short, especially given how little writing is on some of the pages. Most of your time is going to be spent just admiring the art. And it's just, it is kind of just fascinating to read. It's fascinating to read with the awareness of his future films, but it's also just a really good read on its own. It's a really good book on its own. So, it is very much worth reading. Next book I read, which I've actually already started. Yeah, next book I'm reading is Heavenly Tyrant by Jiranjay Zhou. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'll double check before I do a review of this one, because I don't want to mispronounce her name. This one is a sequel. It's a sequel to Iron Widow. So, if you haven't read Iron Widow, I do have a review of that up. So I recommend checking that out. And that'll be the next book I read is Heavenly Tyrant. But for now, Shuna's Journey by Hayao Miyazaki. Very good book, very much worth reading. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. I hope.